Knowledge. How much knowledge is out there today, and how much of that knowledge is actually influencing society? Um, you're gonna, in this video, you're gonna find that knowledge is actually influencing a lot of, like, the entire society. Um, I believe it doesn't matter what country you're from, knowledge, especially here in America, but in other countries too, you're going to find that knowledge is influencing your society that you live in. Um, whether it's knowledge on a whole bunch of lies or knowledge on a whole bunch of truth, it's influencing what society believes and how society thinks. Um, so interesting is throughout, and I don't know what this is probably true throughout other countries history. People have written, and definitely here in America, I can definitely testify this here in America. I don't know on what level, in other countries, but definitely here in America, we have a lot of writers. We have a lot of people that have written books, throughout time. A lot of people that have written blogs, throughout history of, American history, and a lot of news articles throughout American history have been written on, how to raise a child, how to dress, what type of soap you should use, what color to paint the baby's room if it was, a guy versus like male or female. Um, and books on how to raise a child, and even books on and writings on how to be a good wife or how to be a good husband. And yet some of that is true, some of it false. Here we're not going to I'm not going to tell you what is true and what is false. No, I just want to wake you up to know that there's writings out there that are telling you the truth, that you can see that somebody has, that there are books out there where people have spent the time doing the research, and there you can see that there's truth to it. But there's other books where it sounds like there is truth to it, but there's really, it doesn't hold any truth. And so this video is mainly about, getting you to realize that there are books out there that are just full of lies, and books out there that are truth, and how to, just to get you the kind of think get back to thinking for ourselves, getting back to, testing knowledge. And a interesting fact is that um, we often don't check knowledge. Like when a person gives out knowledge, us that listen, we just soak in every kind of knowledge that people are giving. Well, until it comes to that person, well, they're a Christian, so like this could be um a Christian that has written a book. This could be a Christian that has gone out and done research. This could be a Christian inside the science field. Any like an archaeologist or a geologist, like anywhere in the science field. It seems like we listen to evolutionists, we soak in what the evolutionists tell us, and we soak in whatever the evolutionists write about. But then when a creationist, somebody who believes in 6-day creation, somebody that believes in God, comes out and gives us evidence showing that there is no evidence for evolution, it's like push, we don't want to soak that information in or that type of knowledge in. We want to push that type of knowledge away. And we're only, the knowledge that we're soaking in is knowledge of, people that are of this world, it seems like. So it seems like we always test the knowledge of Christians, but then the knowledge that comes from the people of this world, the secular world, we just want to soak in that knowledge all day long and we never test it. Well, it's time to wake up and start testing all knowledge. It doesn't matter if the person is a Christian or an evolutionist, we need to be testing that knowledge. We can't just be soaking in the knowledge from an evolutionist and be pushing everything that the Christian says away. Um, we need to be testing everything. Um, we need to be testing all knowledge. And because we cannot let the people that are putting this knowledge out, we can't let them control how we think. Now, yes, there's the exception to that. If, like, say, I was to write a book, if I was to write a book, um, then if that book held truth, then yes, we can allow that book to influence our thoughts. But we need to test, like, you would have to test everything that I wrote about in that book. This video, for instance, you should be testing everything that I say in this video. And I guarantee you, those that are of the world, because I'm a Christian, I can guarantee you this video is going to be tested. There's people that are going to probably comment and probably laugh at this video, mainly just because I'm a Christian. But then they would be hypocritical, because if I was to say that I'm an evolutionist, all ears would be on board, right? There would be nobody that would argue, or nobody would come against this video. And so, but anyways, that's what we should do, is we should be testing knowledge. And so, because we cannot allow knowledge to, again, there's the exception. If we find evidence for that knowledge, we can allow it to influence us, right? However, if we don't find any evidence that that knowledge that the person is, saying or, stating, if we don't find any evidence for that, we should not allow that type of knowledge to influence society. And well, that's what we're doing, is we're just, when we soak up knowledge without even testing what the person is saying to see if there's any evidence, and we're just soaking in knowledge, that's what we're doing, is we're allowing lies to influence society. And without even testing a book about parenting, well, again, some of that could be, there could be truth to some of what books written about parenting. There could be some truth there. But I guarantee you, there's some books that sound like they are speaking truth. But if we were to put that to test, and not be so quick to soak in that knowledge, so basically what I'm saying is, don't be a simpleton. Don't be gullible. We shouldn't be gullible. We shouldn't be simpletons, just soaking things in, because you could be soaking in a whole bunch of lies. Because it's interesting, even going back to, I'm sure, when the newspaper first came out, right? The newspaper started then, later, involved, and, people started putting their own articles inside the newspaper. And when people started doing that, society was influenced. So a person being able to have their own article in a newspaper could have written about, well, this is the colors that men, and these are the colors that women like. These are the colors that men like. These are the colors that women like. Now, I don't know if that would have been, I'm not saying that would have been a article, but I'm saying that there could have been articles similar to that, or articles, telling you how to raise your child. And what we've done is, instead of challenging those articles, we've just soaked those articles in as a society, and we started believing those articles. So I'm sure there was probably some articles that, said that the men should shave their faces and women should shave their legs, right? Now, I'm not saying that there were articles like that, but I'm saying that could be possible, that during this time of when the newspapers started giving people articles, when allowing people to have their own article in a newspaper, that's what people started to do, is they started to write about, what men should do versus what women should do, and things like that. And okay, some of that could have been true, right? Some of what they wrote about could have been true, but there was still a lot of it not true. And over time, we just soaked in the knowledge. Then, and I'm sure there were some books that were out during this time, but now we move to a time period where books are, like, everybody seems to be writing books. Everybody, they see, here you have a period of the newspaper, of how, people, the newspaper allowed people to have their own article, um, and people saw that they could, do that. Then you have, the era where books and people started to see how people writing books were starting to get famous and rich off of selling books. So then you have an era where you have a lot of authors, and you still have many authors today that write many, many books. But you move to the knowledge being put into these articles of newspapers, to now people finding out they can write books that give knowledge. And whether the book is full of lies or full of truth, you have people just soaking in that knowledge. And so you have evolutionists, Charles Darwin, the huge famous evolutionist, who, and those before him, writing books on evolution. Nobody testing those books, nobody arguing whether his study was right or wrong. it just all seems, well, he's the one that did the research, so I guess we're just going to acknowledge that he is right. We're just going to soak in that knowledge, acknowledge that he is right. Christians at the time, you know, kind of those that are intelligent Christians don't really struggle, but the average Christian at that time kind of struggles to find answers, or like answers that would be legit. Because Christians of that time, they wouldn't have just gave answers like, well, just wait until you meet your maker. Well, yeah, there's truth to that statement, but that's not a legitimate argument to what Charles Darwin came up with. See, Charles Darwin came out with all that animals evolved over time and things like that, and the average Christian at that time only really could give answers, well, to that had to do with, well, just wait until you meet your maker. Well, so, but now we obviously Christians have awoken, and now there's many Christian scientists, Christian archaeologists and geologists that are like all in the science field, or in the field of science. And Christians are starting to wake up, and they're starting to find actual answers and real evidence that shows that Charles Darwin was wrong. But you have people that are like, well, they're Christian. Because they're Christian, I don't want to listen to them. And they're just rejecting. And so going back to the era of the books, right? And you have like evolutionists being really smart and clever, going, all I need to do is write a whole bunch of books on evolution, and people are going to soak up this knowledge without it being, and maybe the Christians might, come against it, but they knew during that time, they knew that they had the Christians defeated in that time period. Because again, like, Christians hadn't quite, now there were obviously some that were more intelligent, and over time Christians became more and more intelligent and waking up to this beautiful thing called knowledge, and studying science and geology and all of that, to where we are today, where you have a lot of Christians interested in science and using science to find evidence of the Genesis flood and things like that. Where before it's like Christians, they didn't want anything to do with science. And that's what I'm kind of talking about. That's the reason why Christians in the time of Charles Darwin, because they were rejecting science, they couldn't really give like a full answer to what he was proposing. And so now you have more and more Christians that are waking up, realizing that science can prove God's existence. And so it's just a matter of time before evolution gets killed and we have to bury evolution. But we have to do better as a society to not be pushing the Christians. Like I said earlier, Christians pushed science out. Now, Christians are realizing that science can prove that God does exist. So, what the secular scientists what they're doing now is they're rejecting everything that the Christian says. See where I'm going with this? Well, what would happen if they woke up and realized that what everything that the Christian was saying is evidence, is actually evidence. And so we're just waiting for that era to happen. And that's kind of already happening on a small level. There has been, you know, secular scientists that have, you know, not on a huge, large scale. It's very, very small. But you do have, atheists coming to Jesus based on, you know, Christians being able to give evidence, um, and evolutionists being able, because there's, Christians that are able to give evidence that Jesus existed and the flood and things like that. So, what I'm saying is, again, it goes back to the proof. And that is my proof. That is my evidence that if, as a society, we started to, instead of just testing everything that the Christians say, we tested everything that everybody said, we would realize what was the truth and we would be able to separate the truth from the lies as a society. As a society, we would be able to separate truth from the lies if we were testing everything, including secular scientists. If we were to test the secular scientists, we would find that it's nothing but a whole bunch of blowing smoke. But we don't do that, do we? We don't test the secular scientists. No, we're only fixing our eyes on the Christian scientist. And so we need to stop doing that, and we need to test everybody. And so now we're in an era where we have internet, We have blogs. People can put blogs on the internet. We have social media where people can put posts on social media. And again, nobody is testing that unless it's a Christian. If a Christian puts anything out on social media, we test it, but then the rest of the world puts something out on social media. Nobody tests that. Nobody, you know, I've had people comment in my comment sections, oh, I love when you whistle. They're calling me a whistleblower. That's what they're saying. Is they're what they're saying is that I'm a whistleblower and they love that I whistle. Because I'm a Christian, they don't agree with anything that I'm saying. But it's funny how they're not testing, whatever they believe. It's like they're not going to test an evolutionist, right? And so I guarantee you there's going to be probably could be a comment saying, oh, I love it when you whistle. Well, then let me sound the trumpet. You might love that a lot more than me whistling. That's all I got to say to that. Like, if you like me whistling because you say I'm a whistleblower, well, let me get a trumpet and see how much you like it.